In the early days of a relationship, when butterflies fill the air, it's easy to go above and beyond and be that godly man who leads and loves like Jesus. At least it feels like it. But as time goes on and we get more comfortable in the relationship, we may begin to develop patterns that ultimately become detrimental to our relationship. Oftentimes we don't realize that it's happening. In this video, I'm going to share with you 10 signs that you've become passive in your relationship, and I'm going to also share with you biblical advice for breaking free. Let me know in the comments which one of these you identify with the most in your relationship. The first sign is the silent partner syndrome. You don't initiate meaningful conversations anymore. You provide only short recaps to events throughout the day. How was work? It was good. It was fine. You provide very little input to your partner's ideas, things that they're thinking about, their dreams. Oh man, we should do this. Maybe we should go on a vacation next year. Oh yeah, that sounds interesting. Yeah, maybe even their concerns. I feel like, we should spend more time together, or maybe it would be awesome if you plan some more dates for us. Yeah, that's fair, but we've been busy. You see how we're kind of always just very short with it. Often this goes hand in hand with getting home from work and going straight to the TV, watching the game, getting on social media, not really putting aside any time for connection, and you guys grow apart. Now, the second sign is chore avoidance. Now, it's not necessarily that you're trying to always just avoid all responsibility. You'll get to it eventually, but the reality is your timeline is just a lot different from hers. But what ends up happening, because she cares more, is she does it. And this is just a theme in your relationship now. You're comfortable. You don't feel too bad about it because after all, she's the one who really cares about the place being nice, so she can do it. Maybe early on in your relationship, you were taking a lot of initiative to show her what an awesome guy you were. Oh man, he can do the dishes. Oh wow, he's sweeping the floor. Oh wow, he cleaned the house right before I got home. What an amazing guy. But now, it doesn't seem that attractive to go above and beyond. Both of these first two signs demonstrate just a lack of care. You know what? I just don't care enough to ask you more about your day. I just don't care enough to do the dishes so then you don't have to do them. I don't care as much. And this kind of apathy in a relationship is dangerous. Maybe it's a reflection of how we feel about our life in general. We just don't care a lot right now. Maybe work is going poorly. We just feel like our life isn't going in a particularly good direction and we've just lost motivation. Here's what the Bible says is that we should work for God and not just for men. So yes, you want to honor your wife and you should be, because that's part of marriage, but ultimately you should be doing it for God. You should be working and keeping up your responsibilities for God. He's number one, first and foremost. And the other piece to this is you have an obligation to your wife to be there for her. Now, we can think pretty selfishly about this, saying, you know what? I get the connection that I need from my phone and the TV and the sports that I'm watching or the video games that I'm playing. I don't need this connection right now. But those are harmful coping mechanisms that you're using. Those are cheap substitutes for what God has given you. And so I'd encourage you, see what it looks like to pull those things away. All of a sudden, you'll be looking for that connection again. You'll become less numb to the world and apathetic to things. And it'll encourage you to make that extra step, ask that extra piece of, extra question about how the day was. Now, when my wife and I first got married, we had this intention that, no TV, no phones in the bedroom, all that kind of thing. And for a while we had the TV in there, but then we took it out. But then, I've used my phone in bed for so long. I've just watched, YouTube videos or listened to a podcast when I'm going to sleep from the time I was really young. I know that's not a very helpful thing. But at the same time, that was just the pattern, right? Instead, now we've taken them out of the bedroom and we chat so much more. And I think it's one of those things when you remove distractions that the world doesn't feel as big and chaotic, and you have time to just talk about random things. It opens the floodgates to communication, really. The third sign that you're being passive in your relationship is decision deflection. Now, we talk a lot about this when it comes to, being a nice guy. Nice guys, they just want to be agreeable and we don't have to make the decisions. I mean, even think back to Adam in the garden. He was with Eve when Eve was being tempted by Satan, and she ate the apple and she gave it to him, and he was just standing idly by. He didn't want to interfere. He didn't want to make a decision. He didn't want to do anything. He wanted to follow. He didn't want to be the leader. And I think this is really common for us. If we become apathetic in a relationship, pretty passive, then we are going to, hey, where should we eat for dinner? You decide. What should we do for vacation next year? You decide. Do you think we should do this or this? Well, you decide. It doesn't matter to me. Not only will your wife or girlfriend lose respect for you, but this is also a neglect of God's responsibilities placed on your shoulders to be the leader, to be the one who takes responsibility. I remember when my wife and I were dating, I didn't want to take responsibility. I didn't want to make the decisions because at the end of the day, then if something went wrong or it was kind of a fail, then it would be back on my shoulders. And I was prideful enough to think that I could push that on her so I wouldn't have to experience that failure. But that is exactly God's role for me, is that I would make the decisions and in turn experience the responsibility of if it goes wrong. Sign number 4 is emotional detachment. Your partner comes to you expressing feelings and you really just don't have the energy right now. So you give fairly generic, it'll be okay. Well, it's fine. It's not that big a deal. But in that moment, are you truly meeting them where they're at, recognizing the validity of their emotions? No. Well, why? Maybe you're tired, you had a long day, you just got your own things going on, or legitimately you feel like what they're experiencing is not a big deal. I guess what I would say is just know that God, even, he knows everything, and he understands perfectly, and yet he even has compassion for us. He doesn't look at us and say, what you're thinking, what you're feeling is unreasonable. Just kind of suck it up. It'll be fine. No, even he has compassion for us. And so we ought to show that same compassion and to show that same grace, even if we don't relate totally with the situation or how they're feeling, to really say, oh, you know what, that makes sense, to ask questions about what they're experiencing, because that the marriage covenant, that relationship covenant, is where you want to experience being known. The 5th sign is spiritual passivity. Perhaps early on, it was pretty easy to say, hey, let's do Bible study together. You began your honeymoon with doing this Bible study that you got, and it was really good. And then as time went on, things got busy. Maybe you bought a house, you had a kid, or even just work in general is just a lot. And so your schedules don't line up. That's the excuse that you tell yourself. That's why we don't do Bible study together anymore. That's why we don't do devotions anymore. And sure, I haven't checked up on her to see if she's even doing devotions by herself, but I'm sure she'll figure it out. I'm doing my own thing occasionally. I hate to say it, I've been there too. And it takes a humbling. It takes some courage to be like, hey, you know what? I've screwed up. I should have made this more of a priority in our life. Can you forgive me? And can we start fresh? The 6th sign here is a brutal one. So maybe you're out with family or friends and you find yourself frequently highlighting your partner's shortcomings. They're not good at this, or they made this mistake the other day, or they did this ridiculous thing that ended up, costing us some money or costing us some time, or, they screwed up in this way. And maybe it might seem lighthearted. It's just for a joke. But listen to me, maybe your partner doesn't feel that way. Perhaps even though they might be going along with it too, you're damaging their self-esteem and the way that they see their own self-worth. You're not protecting your partner's reputation. In fact, you're tearing it down. You're making them seem like a fool in front of everyone. Proverbs 18:21 says, death and life are in the power of the tongue, and those who love it will eat its fruits. Guys, if you're not the one protecting your partner's reputation, then who is? If you're not the one standing firm and you're not going to say anything bad about them, then who is, right? There's no defense. They're just vulnerable. And because you know everything about them, so more than anyone essentially, then you have all this material, right? And so it's on your head to protect them, to not use that against them, to demean them, to get a quick laugh. Sign number 7 is consistent conflict avoidance. Once again, when we talk about the nice guy mentality, it's I don't want to make her mad, or I don't want to disagree with her. I just want her to be approve of me and to like me and to be affectionate towards me, and I just want to maintain peace because I don't want this to be an issue. And it's just really, at the end of the day, self-preservation. That's why we don't want to speak up, to verbalize our expectation. But what ends up happening is bitterness, resentment grow within us, because if we never show that hey, we disagree on something, then we're just holding that within ourselves. Hebrews 12:15 says, "See to it that no one fails to obtain the grace of God, that no root of bitterness springs up and causes trouble, and by it many become defiled." I won't disagree, and I won't say what I feel about it, because I just want to maintain the peace. And maybe you learn that early on in your life. Guys, that's not being a man, that's being a child that's seeking self-protection. And maybe you had to do that as a child to find that protection. But as a man, you can hone into the courage that God gives us and the strength and the security that he gives us, that even if, hey, she's offended, or she's like, it becomes a little bit more, amped up, and because there's conflict involved. But it's important to actually be real with each other, to have a real relationship, even if that causes a little bit of temporary conflict. Sign number 8 is vision disconnect. This could be, regard to a lot of different things. You ultimately just have a different vision than what your partner has. And your vision consists of you and your achievements and what you want your life to be like, but it's not really a holistic family vision. This goes hand in hand with decision deflection, because you don't have a vision for your family when it comes to your children's schooling, or what your work life is going to look like, or where you'll live, or how your church involvement is going to be. It's all decision deflection, because you have this vision disconnect. It's like a football captain who's only thinking about his stats at the end of the day, but not the ultimate success of the whole team. Sign number 9 that you're being passive in your relationship is the gratitude gap. You begin to focus, fester, and dwell on your belief that your partner is not giving you enough affirmation or appreciation for what you do and what you contribute. After all, you make the money. But as you fester on these things, you're going further and further away. That root of bitterness is really growing. But then think about from her perspective too. Do you think she really feels like you're giving her the affirmation and the gratitude that she deserves? More than likely, she feels a similar way. Now, it may be true that she's not really expressing any appreciation towards you, what you do. And maybe you do work hard, right? That may be true. But as the man, it's your job to lead. So what do? You open the floodgates. You begin to show your appreciation. You begin to show her your gratitude for what she does. That changes the culture of a family. Sign number 10, and I've seen this to be fatal in relationships, is external influence. External influence. It's about how much you allow the influence of your friends and family to play into your relationship, how you live your life, and whose approval is more important. And this is an important question that you guys need to ask yourself here, is what is more important, the approval of your mom or your wife? Whether your mom is upset or your wife is upset, who at the end of the day are you trying to please? You can respect your parents' opinion, you can respect your friend's opinion, but at the end of the day, it should not be about their opinion or their approval, or whether they're upset or not. That should not dictate the way that you lead your family. And if your wife feels like you are more committed to your mom's happiness and whether she is accepting of all that you're doing, man, that's going to send a rift. That is going to send a big stake in your relationship. There's these pivotal moments where you can show your wife, hey, I'm with you. I am not with them. I respect them, but I'm with you. I really hope that this video gives you insight into how to start fresh, even if that's just recognizing this, spelling it out, saying, this is what I've been doing. This is why I've been doing it, and I'm sorry, and let's start over. Until next time, keep pursuing the mission.